always on video, but I do normally host these mastery sessions by Espresso Agent, which is, they're just so awesome for putting together these things. We've had some incredible learning moments over the last couple months. So let's see. Oh, and then at the bottom of your screen there, you should see chat or Q&A. You can do either one if you do have questions along the way. As best as possible, I will try to grab the questions and ask them as we go. But based on the conversation and how it's going along with Sarah, we may just circle back to your questions at the end of the session, if that's all right with you. One other thing is we have our next mastery session is going to be on March 7th with Lee Davenport, who is awesome. She's a ton of fun. She's out of Georgia, and she's going to be talking about how is your business planning going. It's a great time to take 1 second or a little bit longer out of your day and examine kind of where you are to date, because I mean, it's already the end of February, and by then it'll be, 1st of March. So join us at 1 o'clock on the 7th of March. You'll be getting some information on that. So, all right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our honored guest here today, Sarah Close. And I love this session because I actually know Sarah very well. She owns and is the OP of the office I'm associated with. So I've worked for and with Sarah for a long time. So let me introduce her to you guys. She's been in the business about 23 years. She started out before real estate. She worked for Procter & Gamble, just a little company here in Cincinnati. And she was one of very few people that leaves P&G ever in their life, especially to get into real estate. What the hell were you thinking, Sarah? Jeez. Anyway, she was actually the person that brought Keller Williams to city of Cincinnati and has turned real estate on its head in Cincinnati as a result, which has been a lot of fun. And she currently runs a very robust team, one of the top teams in our market center. She started out as a single agent and grew this business and now does an incredible amount of business. And in her spare time, runs 5 other Keller Williams offices. So she is the perfect person to talk about running a business through chaos and kids and all of other life's challenges, because she has 2 amazing daughters who keep her on her toes. Right, Sarah?
Very much so.
I know it. So welcome. We're so glad you're here. Yeah, we're going to drill into that, but I just also want to drill in just to some general Q&A questions about you and your business. And why don't we start with kind of how you got started in the business and how you ramped up your business when you first jumped in.
Sure. So I'm a little unusual in that I'm a 3rd-generation realtor. So in my family, you get your pacifier and your real estate license. That's just kind of how we do it. So when I was graduating from college, I had taken several classes for my business degree that would also qualify for my real estate license. So before I started my real job, I went ahead and got licensed for the state of Ohio, and just kind of kept that in my back pocket. And of course, no one wanted to hire me because I was going to be part-time. But that's how I kind of fell into the business. And in getting started, honestly, I built my business the first year pretty much through open houses. So I would say that is the one thing that I did my first year that drove my business. So.
And you did that with purpose. I mean, I'm sure you had some systems around that, or did you just kind of go at it?
I had no idea what I was doing. So I am at this point, that's 1994. I am 22 years old, and I am selling real estate on around a full-time work calendar as an F&A manager at Procter. So I had weekends and evenings, basically. So I think probably by default, I kind of had to.
Yeah.
But I asked everybody, I'm like, what do you got? Can I do that for you? Can I do that open house? And I mean, my first year, my GCI was equal to just about $3 million in business. So
out of open houses on the weekends.
All open houses, because I'm not from Cincinnati. I didn't know anybody. And if you're not from here and you didn't go to high school here, you are an outsider. So you don't get any of the inside stuff. So it was all, just eat what you kill.
That's hilarious. Well, tell me how your 2016 was.
It was a pretty good year for us. It was not as good as we wanted it to be. We had some team transitions, but all told, we were about 108 units and right around $26 million in volume. So
Nice, congrats.
Yeah.
That's a good year. What are the goals for 2017?
200 units, 40 million.
200 units, 40 million.
Yeah, to do that. So that's the
You
goal.
know, I noticed when I asked that question, you didn't hesitate. And that is one of the common threads through all the people we've interviewed here. And anytime you talk to a top producer, they know exactly what their goals are and where they're heading, right?
Yeah, you have to. It's too much else to get distracted with if you don't know where you're going.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. What percentage of your business comes from expireds and FSBOs? Because I know you're calling on a regular basis versus the referrals. So for last year, for instance.
It's a great question. And last year it was 23% that came from expireds and for sale by owners. Okay. And I'm all calling through this system to get those. That's the only method I use. And 55% was past client or referred.
Okay, good. So good were expireds.
Yeah.
Cool.
Those
So you're doing open houses and that's kind of going well and you decide to make the jump. I mean, what was maybe it happened early on or maybe it happened more recently. What was like the single most important sort of pivot in your mind or your business that sort of changed, where you were kind of stumbling through it to where you got really purposeful?
It's a really good question. And it's probably largely due to, frankly, to having kids, is that all of a sudden my time got really valuable. It wasn't just, I can just work more hours and get more done. It was, all right, if I'm going to work this many hours, I've got to make sure I've got a return to show for it. And that sort of, when I look at time on the task, the most efficient way for me to use my time, for me, and there's a lot of ways to do this, my personal preference is on the phone. And so that made that shift for me. And that's kind of the base layer in my day. On a scheduled day, that's the first thing I do when I get in, and I get in at 8 and get on the phone.
Okay, and so what you mean by that, the best way to use your time is just the most efficient in the form of results? Is that those people have their hands up or?
Yep, biggest bang for the buck in terms of results. So, the past client and the referral business is wonderful, and that's through good service and maintaining a constant contact with the clients over time, and, techniques and sandbox and all those good things, that creates that momentum that drives the referral business. But it is not as on demand is the term I would use as for sale by owner or expired businesses.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
You can make a call today to an expired, get it listed tomorrow and have a closing in 45 days. Where I can't make a call as predictably to a member of my sphere and have that same closing trajectory that's calculated.
Sure. Yeah, that does make sense. So let's go back to the whole kids and the schedule and that whole piece. And I know one thing we talked about is that I always noticed is hey there, Jamie.
Visitors everywhere.
That's right. There's a schedule I'm sure you'd really like to keep and what you're supposed to be keeping, and then there's reality. So talk to me a little bit about what that looks like and how you've kind of come to figure out what you're doing right now in the minutia.
Yeah, and it's so there is, like you said, there's the planned schedule, and then there's kind of what really happens. And when my results are really strong, it's when I have been the most consistent with that calendar. That's the number one thing that happens. As you mentioned, I have some responsibilities with some market centers and kids and, life and everything that everybody else has. And so it's not always as I'd like it to be. And when that happens, might sound a little weird, but we've all got our quirks. I kind of look at almost a 2-week, I got a lot of them. I got a 2-week horizon, and I look at the fortnight, if you will, and I say, okay, how many hours do I have that I can do lead gen? And what do I want those results to be from those hours? And ideally that's spread out every morning, 8 to 11 or 11:30. I typically have meetings Friday mornings, so I'm not doing a lot of calling on Fridays except for just very new expireds. And then when it gets botched up, the key is saying, okay, holy cow, I lost 3 hours today because I got sidetracked in an email bunny rabbit hole or something. Where am I going to put that back into the book so that I get the same results I wanted over this dedicated time frame? So
Okay.
It doesn't always work perfectly, but that's the idea.
That's the idea. So if you erase, you must replace. That's what
right.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So I've seen you in the office on a Saturday morning, or I've heard you because you're behind closed doors.
Yes.
And I know you're in there for hours just grinding it out. So is that sort of the leeway you give yourself to allow your day just during the week to get off track, and then you'll pay for it later, so to speak? Or what is that psychology?
What is it? What is that craziness?
Yeah.
I do pay for it later when I get off track. And I obviously much prefer to not be working on weekends, and most weekends I don't. But what I know is that people are generally home on Saturday mornings.
Mm-hmm.
They're also generally home and usually in a fairly decent mood on Sunday afternoons between like 4 and 7. Like it's like shooting fish in a barrel. I mean, the efficiency metrics are so much higher in that, especially in that Sunday time slot.
Wow.
That I can get maybe 2 days worth of work done in that time frame. And I like to chunk things. So like I like to block my listing appointments together. I like to block my calling together. If I'm doing meetings, I try to get them all lined up. I am not great at transitioning. It's the switch costs for me are high. Like when I walk out the door, because I'm involved in the market center, it can take me an hour and 45 minutes to walk from the back door to the front door if there are people in the office that have questions and things that they're going through. And that's part of what I do in the field. So when I'm in the bunker, I need to be in the bunker. And that Saturday call session or that Sunday call session, I'm in basically like, frankly, comfortable clothes and flip-flops, and I'm standing up and I'm knocking them out, and I'm in the zone and I don't think about anything else. I shut my phone off and I can cover a lot of ground, and I'm also in a really good mindset that's pretty singularly focused. Mm-hmm. So frankly, I'm probably a lot more effective.
Okay.
When and that works for me. It doesn't work for everybody. And
yeah,
I don't mind the calling. So
that was the whole point of having you join us, because I do know there are some people that are able to stick to that 8 to 11 every day, and they do it, and it's their lifeline. But I also know that there's reality for most of the folks on this call, much like yours, yet you're still able to achieve the levels of success that you want to achieve, even with all of that. And so that's a little different. It's like falling off your diet on Wednesday and you're like, screw it, I'll just get back on it next year.
And then start back tomorrow. It's because I do have, it's like my oldest daughter, Amelia, she has something going on yesterday that she dropped on me at 11:30. She's like, oh, by the way, you need to pick me up at 3:15 today. I'm like, oh, thanks for sharing, So that was like, I had to recalibrate what was happening with my afternoon schedule, which is fine. But that's probably more the norm for me. Like, it's not normal for me to have the day go precisely as planned. I've sort of thrown out that.
I love your honesty about that, because I can almost guarantee everybody else feels the same way. So.
I wish it did, but it just doesn't.
It just doesn't. So let me ask you this then. Do you look at it from, I want to lead generate 15 hours a week, or you just say, I'm trying to get X number of appointments a week? And once you get that, then you kind of give yourself the pass for the rest of the week.
Honestly, I do it both ways, just kind of depending on what's going on. So here's what I know. Like the lead metric for me is appointments. So if I've got the appointments and I'm able to shave off some time, I'll give myself a pass and get out of the office. I've done that on a lot of occasions. Even if I say I'm going to do it anyway and get ahead, don't. I'm just saying, doesn't always. There's someone at Pearls for happy hour, and I'm like, oh, that looks fun.
That sounds fun.
So, yeah, it'll go out the window if I'm done what I said I was going to do. I think the hours for me act as the secondary metric. So the appointments are the first goal. If I haven't gotten the appointments, then I've got to get the hours in, and that kind of, that translates to the contacts. So
Okay.
and I know over time it's all going to work itself out. That if I put the time in, I may not be rewarded today for the time on the task, but next week, probably the first 3 people, just
Right.
first 3 people I call will say, sure, I'd love to meet you. I've been waiting for you to
Right. Right. Of course.
And I had 50 now, the week before. So,
Right.
you get some real, so
I'm sure you could probably write a book.
I am really trying to collect material because I think this will be in demand at some point.
I think we should do that.
General public. It's been fun.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I think we should do that with all of Espresso Agent. We should all contribute our dialing hilarities and
exactly chicken soup for the prospective soul. Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. Tell me about your metrics. How many dials do you have to make to get so many contacts, to so many appointments, to so many listings?
That's a good question. And I don't know exactly how many dials I make. I'll be honest with you.
Okay.
Because the way I use the dialer is I use it to dial. And then I have my need to follow up with that I don't always necessarily use the dialer to call. So when I look at my bottom line numbers there, I can't say that the total number of calls that I made translated as a reliable ratio. What I do know is that in calling for sale by owners and expireds, when I get a live one and they A, own the house, B, speak a language that I can speak, all those things happening.
Right.
It's about 1 out of 6 that I can get an appointment with.
That's strong.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
That's pretty good.
But I've done this for a long time.
How long have you done
if you
this?
call, I was the very first user on this system.
Wow.
I'm a guinea pig. So that's been, what? This is 6 years?
Yeah.
And before that, I was still calling, but with no efficiency because this is, in my opinion, the very best, most efficient way to gather the data you need to make the calls you need to make. So I'd spend half my day on, a service digging up phone numbers. And I still do that every once in a while when I need to, but but pretty much not, pretty much this.
So is it just strictly time on task before you got efficient with those metrics? Or was there something that maybe you figured out that you could share with guys today that helped shift that into, instead of every 15 calls to an appointment, you got down to 6?
I think you're kind of hitting on it's time on the task and focused time on the task, meaning paying attention to what's working and what's not working. So, for example, I learned that if I am, for me, giving a long introduction when someone answers the call, I lose them. So in my script is shifted to be a little abbreviated and then maybe a little Frankenstein in the back half. Just
interesting.
As I've seen things work, again, it's not always, doesn't work every time. I think paying attention to what getting hung up is helpful, if that makes any sense.
No, that makes a lot of sense. Actually, I'd like to hang there for a minute. So abbreviated intro, just getting right to the point. What are some other tips that you've figured out along the way?
Thick skin, so throw your turtle armor on and just know that these people don't, I really did have a lot of anxiety about calling higher price points, things like that. I used to get all kind of whacked out, or, oh my gosh, the agent I had before is this awesome agent that I idolize. I got over that. But yeah, I'm not saying everybody's got their own thing that they're hung up on.
Sure.
So, just kind of getting a suit of armor and not feeling like, this is going to sound really cliche and probably irritating, but this is now a habit. And so I feel weird if I'm not calling and I'm like, oh my God, I've forgotten to do something. And it's like that naggy feeling like you left the stove on when I haven't done it. So that's just, I've now been able to take it out of the part of my brain where it eats up a ton of energy to get rolling and shift it a little bit into autopilot. So it's just kind of something I do now, not unlike brushing my teeth. makes any sense.
Gary Keller would be very proud of you right there.
Well, I'm trying.
He's beat it into you finally.
I mean, but it's true. I mean, it's really true. It's interesting, and I'm kind of happy to be on the other side of that finally. You know,
Right.
So.
Right. That's great. Okay, and we're going to do a little role play here in a bit, so you guys will get to hear Sarah's language and some of her transitions and shifts and rebuttals and objection handlers. So we'll get there in a second. How do you hold yourself accountable? Who are you accountable to in your business?
I do have a coach that I am in dialogue with every week.
Okay.
And so that's, at the end of the day, if I've been, those are some big breaks. If I'm starting to slide downhill, I can't get very far because I have someone going, what are you doing? So if I screw up, it's usually just for a week before I get back on track,
Okay.
which is helpful. And the other thing is because I do have now an organization that I'm working within, so I have a small team within the market center. I view myself as needing to pull my weight in that organization. So if I'm not leading by example and I'm not on the phone and I'm not getting, screamed at by the guy that's got the 18th call for the morning, and I'm expecting them to do that, I have a hard time being in a kind of in integrity, I guess, for lack of a better word with that. So that's helpful because I have that sort of soft accountability that if I don't do it, everybody knows.
Right. Oh yeah. Right. You better be at the top of that heap then.
Gotta be at the top of that heap. Yeah, exactly.
So how could we translate that for the participants on the call when they're not running a market center? What kind of, and if they don't have a coach or for some reason they're not getting a coach, what
get a friend.
What does it look like? What?
Yeah, like just get it, and it doesn't need to be, but I think it's often helpful if it is. But I know that before I had a coach, I had other agents that I had a great deal of respect for. And if I would say, this is what I'm doing and share that with them, and then they were checking in on me, by God, I'm going to have made it. If my result wasn't there, my activities would be there. So
Okay.
I'm comfortable committing to activities from an accountability standpoint because those rely solely within my control. And where I get uncomfortable is if I commit to something that another person can impact the outcome on, if that makes any sense.
That's a great
point. So I think, have an accountability person. Frankly, my kids know what I'm supposed to be doing. So they know. And I think if I needed that additional pressure, I'd say, hey guys, this is what I'm going to do this week. What do you think?
How do they enjoy that?
Yeah. So that's a good one. And I've written checks to organizations and given them to people to hold for me. One of my agent friends in one of my offices held a check written out to my ex-husband. He's the last person that I'm going to give any money to, more than was already happening. And so, there's a motivator. I've got some guy I've got to look in the eye and say, yeah, I did what I said I was going to do. And he's got a big $1,000 check up on his bulletin board. That'll make your stomach turn. So,
That's
there's all kinds of ways to skin a cat. But
that is awesome.
Knowledge is a big piece of it.
That's huge. Sharon, or Sarah and I are both vegetarians, and I wrote a check once for $10,000 to the U.S. Cattlemen's Association.
Yeah, perfect.
And whatever it was I was supposed to do, you better believe I did that.
I was going to say, it got done.
First of all, $10,000. Second of all, to those guys. So.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that'll leave a mark.
That'll leave a mark. That's right. All right, cool. Let's see. Let's do some role play. You up for that?
Yeah, it might be a little rough, but we'll give it a whirl.
Yeah, sure. Well, we'll do an expired. Okay.
Okay. I don't think I can look at you.
Okay, fine.
Let me get my headset on. Okay, now I'm ready.
There you go. That looks good.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So you're the expired, correct?
I'm the expired.
Okay. Ring, ring.
Hello.
Hi there. My name's Sarah, and I noticed I'm an agent in the area, and I noticed that your property came off the market. Do I have the owner of the property on Main Street?
You do. And how in the world did you get my number? Why are all these people calling me?
Oh, I am so sorry. You are being bombarded, I bet, by agents calling you because your house came out. That is the worst.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
I'm
is.
really along with that.
It is. It's so annoying.
It is annoying. Well, I'm just curious. As I mentioned, I know it came out of the system, and I was just wondering, when do you plan on interviewing the right agent to get your home sold?
You know what? I don't know at this point. I mean, I think we'll probably just relist it with our other agent. I don't know why this expired.
Oh, I got you. Were you aware that it came off the market?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, that's so frustrating. I hate when I'm the one telling the seller that their house came off the market and the agent that they had hired to look after their house hasn't even told them it came off the market. I'm curious, when your house does sell, where are you going to?
We are moving to Cleveland.
Oh, wow. When do you guys need to be in Cleveland?
No time in particular. We're just moving back to be a family.
Voluntary move.
Hmm.
Oh, that's great. I'm just curious. What do you think stopped your home from selling?
I have no idea. I have no idea.
Oh, that's so
We just didn't
frustrating.
get enough people through, I guess. I don't know.
I totally understand. And the agent that you had hired before, what is it that that agent did that you liked the best? What was really working for you guys with that?
Well, they're a friend of the family, so I think she was doing a good job for us, obviously.
Gotcha. Yeah, but she just didn't get it sold, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I guess you could say that.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm curious, when you get the house back on the market, what are you expecting to happen with that agent when they do relist your property?
I imagine she'll get it sold now that we're having it, heading into the spring market.
Yeah, so you think the market will make a big difference for you?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just curious. Will you guys, you have this opportunity where you're off of the market, and man, you're selling a $300,000 house. That's an $18,000 investment in the agent that you're using to sell your property. That's a lot of money, isn't it?
Yeah, yes, it is. But she's doing it for a cheaper amount. We would never pay 3%.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure that what you guys are most worried about is how much money you put in your pocket. Isn't that right?
Yes, that's right.
I mean, it makes total sense. I'm just curious. If you guys felt that there might be, I don't know, maybe a different approach or a different technique that might put more of that money in your pocket, would it be worth your time? I don't know, say 20, 25 minutes to learn what that might be about?
You mean you could ask more money for our house than we asked before?
Well, what I'm suggesting is that there are many techniques that agents use to get homes sold that are just, and I'm curious, are you familiar with what we do to get houses like yours?
No, I don't even think I know who you are.
Well, it's certainly very possible you don't know who I am. And I tell you what, and part of that reason is because when your home wasn't on the market, when your home was on the market before, it wasn't something that I was aware of that had been listed. It hadn't been promoted yet to me. And I'm just wondering, when would be a good time for me to show you what we do to get houses like yours sold so that you put the most amount of money in your pocket?
Well, I just don't think I can do that. She's a friend, and I'm sure she's going to want to relist it.
I can completely understand that. Let me ask you this. Is it more important that you're loyal to your friend or that you put more money in your pocket for your family?
That's a great question. I'd like to do both.
You know what? And maybe you can do both. I tell you what, why don't we spend a little bit of time? I can get together with you and just show you what we do. And here's what I'll tell you. I know you're not promising me anything. I know you're not looking to hire another agent. But what I am hearing you say is that it's important to you that you get the most money in your pocket. And I tell you what, if all things are equal, you might be able to walk out of that appointment and say, my gosh, I am so glad that we've hired our friend to sell this property because not only is she our friend, but she's got the best campaign. And I would expect if that's the case that you would continue to list with her. But I would also wonder that if you saw a campaign that you felt confident could get more money in your pocket, that you might be open to exploring that so that you can get the most money for your house. Is that a fair assumption?
I think that's fair. Yes.
Okay. Well, and again, I know you're not promising anything, but let's look at our books together. And again, I'll just do a brief tour of the property. I'll give you a quick valuation of what I think would need to be done, if anything, in order to maximize your value. And if nothing else, you're going to have some additional data from me about your property that you didn't have before. And you'll be better armed as you move into the next phase of selling. I've got Tuesday afternoon available around 2, or I've got a Thursday at 3:30. Which is better for you?
Thursday at 3:30 will work.
All right, that sounds terrific. Now, I tell you what I'm going to do in the meantime. If you would, Monica, give me your email address.
Okay.
What's the best email to reach you?
mweekly@kw.com.
Okay, terrific. I've got that. I'm going to get some information out to you via email, and I'm also going to get a pre-listing packet delivered to your home before our meeting on Thursday. Let me ask you, will you take some look through that ahead of our meeting?
Oh, okay.
And here's why I ask that. I want to make sure that when I get together with you on Thursday, that we're using your time the way that you want to use it, and we're not spending time talking about me. You can read about what we do, at a time that's convenient for you, but I want to make sure that we're really focused on the very specific plan that your house needs to get sold when we meet on Thursday. So I'll get that information out to you ahead of time, and I will look forward to seeing you Thursday at 3:30.
Great. Thank you.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you.
Sarah, I love that. There were some great nuggets in there.
Terribly unusual, but kind of more driven by the conversation.
You know what I loved? I loved the where you put a value to the service of the agent, the $18,000. I thought that I never heard that before.
Yeah. So, depending on where that dialogue's going, I will often say to someone, if you were going to buy an $18,000 car, even if you knew that you wanted to buy a particular brand, do you think you guys might take some time and just test drive something else just to make sure? And most people say yes. Most people will say yes.
Yeah, that's great. Also, what do you include in your pre-listing packet? Are you doing comps there, or?
I am. So I've got 2 versions of a pre-listing packet. I have, and it depends on what I glean from the conversation with the seller. So when I'm in a very strong position going in for the listing appointment, meaning they've called me or I've just nailed the conversation on the phone, I will go in with comps. Everything's marked up. I do it by hand. So it's very organic and kind of natural looking. I don't overload them. But I will put the comps in. I'll circle the portions on that MLS sheet that I think are relevant data points that compare to their house. And then I'll include that in my file. They can look at that before I get there. And I prefer to do that, especially if I'm going to be drawing a conclusion with them that is not as favorable as what they had previously drawn. I want them to be able to freak out before I'm in front of them. So that all of that explosion of she's crazy, what is she thinking, can all be done before I get there, and then they can kind of cool off, and then when we get together we're having a little more of a business conversation about what those numbers say, instead of it being the first time that they're surprised by the recommended valuation. So
have you ever had anybody cancel as a result of what you sent?
I have. And
that's okay.
So honestly, sometimes it's not okay, because it's like, I could have made that work. But a lot of times it is okay. And I have had circumstances as well. Like if I can pre-qualify them on that initial call, I will. I often can't, and I'll do a follow-up call ahead of time, just going through what do you owe, just that very standard pre-qualifying script. If what I say when we get together Thursday at 3:30 makes sense and you feel confident and comfortable that I can sell your home, will you be ready to list with me? I'll go through that very standard,
questionnaire, yeah.
I don't always feel that I've got the rapport to do it when I first get the appointment set. So I'll do a 2-step approach on that one. And sometimes when I pulled the comps, when I'm calling back for that pre-qual conversation and they're saying, and I think the house is worth 200 and they owe 220, we maybe are not going on that appointment. So that kind of flushes itself out a little bit then.
Okay. Let's talk about expireds and FSBOs in this kind of a market where inventory is very low And quite frankly, if your house expires in this market,
Something's really wrong.
something wrong with
Yeah.
pricing, obviously. Maybe those are two separate questions, but what are you hearing a lot of when you're on the phones regarding that, and how are you handling those objections?
So let's talk about for sale by owners first. Our market is really tight, and for sale by owners are having some success.
Right.
And I'm not suggesting that my approach is the best one. It's just the one that I've settled on. And my perspective is, like if I call an expired, and it's a new for sale by owner, I will come right out and say, I'm sure if you wanted to hire a real estate agent, you would have already done that. And then they kind of like chill out, and they're not quite as on the offense because they're waiting for me to ask for a listing appointment. And I will very often in that first phone call just be setting up my second phone call. And I will say, but I'm curious if for some reason the home doesn't sell itself, are you open to professional representation? And then you find out what their story is. I've sold 8 houses on my own or whatever, or my grandmother's a realtor, my girlfriend's a realtor, and then I'm probably, depending on what they say, then that dictates my follow-up schedule. So when the market's as tight as it is, if I get some daylight in the conversation where they're open to the idea, or they're like, yeah, we're going to try it for a couple weeks, my lead-in will be, let me ask you this, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. If you felt that you could put the same money in your pocket if you used a professional agent that you could if you're listed privately, are you open to having that conversation a little earlier? And most people will say, well, how are you going to do that?
Right.
I'll be very honest with you. I can't promise you that that's going to happen because I don't know the specifics around your property. But what I can do is put together what I feel the pricing could be and what I think that would look like with my marketing and representation. And you guys can take a look at those numbers against what you're anticipating getting on your own in the field. Would that be okay with you? So I'm going that way. And I'm not getting some of them right now because frankly, they are selling on their own in some cases.
Yeah.
Probably losing some money, but.
Are you doing a visit based on I might have a buyer?
No, I'm not confident with that because I don't have a buyer. If I did have a buyer, buy the house because that buyer's my client.
Right.
So I have a little trouble with that one.
Okay.
What I can say with confidence is we would love to have an opportunity to preview your home in the event we have a client that has a match in the near future.
Okay.
I'm more comfortable with that because it's true. I think there's a lot of agents
right. Sure.
For your house with photos and internet and everything else. MLS listings. We don't go out and preview if we have a buyer most of the time. Sometimes we do, most of the time. So, and frankly, I will say to a seller, anyone who tells you they're coming to look at their house because they have a buyer is lying to you. Because if they had a buyer, they bring them.
They bring them.
So I go that way with it.
I like that.
Because I'm lazy and I'm not going to go just out joyriding. So.
Well, not just lazy, but your time is extremely.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do it. So
yeah.
I know that works for some people. That's just my thing. So. Right.
Absolutely. Before we get to this next aspect of that question, if you guys would like to put into chat or Q&A another role play topic that you would like Sarah and I to do before we say goodbye here in a few minutes, go ahead and pop that in. If you'd like a different objection that you'd like to see handled or a different scenario, go ahead and do that. But let's talk about, and so while we're collecting those, let's talk about the expired aspect of that and the idea that if something's expiring in this market, there is something inherently wrong with either the price or the condition or something to that effect, right?
Yeah, or the marketing, or there could be any number of things. So I don't get into that too much with the prospect on the phone. I will simply say, like, we want to wait. I'll simply say, if I could just share with you, we are at a historical low inventory level. And what I know is that if your property is priced properly and prepared properly and marketed properly, I know that I can get it sold in this market. If you still genuinely want to be to Cleveland in 3 months, why don't we spend 20 minutes talking about that? And I'll be very honest with you. If I can't get your property sold, or I don't feel that I can get it done, I'm not going to take your listing. It's a waste of time for you, and it's a waste of time and resources for me. I'm not going to do that to either one of us.
Great.
So,
I love that.
you know, 'cause frankly, I'm not. If it's
You're right.
I don't, you know.
Of course. Are you having to say that a lot in your calls, or?
Sometimes, yeah.
Okay.
It's a tool in the toolbox. You know,
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. That's good.
yeah, it's
Okay, let's see if we've got something. Do you, who was that? Somebody, Richard Simpson would like to know if you leave a voicemail. And if so, which voicemail?
I only leave a voicemail if I've talked to them previously. So I will
Okay.
only leave a voicemail for a follow-up. And the reason I do that is I want my phone number that I'm calling from, I have a couple different numbers, to have the best opportunity of being answered the next time. And I don't know how beat up they're going to be in the meantime with agents calling. So
Okay.
that's just me personally. And it's faster.
Okay, perfect. Let's see. Yeah, do you have what you feel is a unique selling proposition that you'd be willing to share with the group, or what do you think is your edge when you are competing? Besides your experience.
Yeah, and that's not duplicatable. So I mean, you know,
Right.
yeah, that's nice, and I can use that when I need it, but that doesn't always matter, frankly.
Right.
So I think when I'm meeting with a client, my suspicion is that their takeaway is that I'm going to be very straight with them. And I think that my delivery style in a meeting is pretty question-based, and it's pretty low. I'm not really in your face. You know, I've got good energy and whatever, and I can be enthused about their home, but I'm not a real salesy salesperson. So
Got it.
I am also very comfortable with allowing someone to break their agreement with me if they're not 100% happy. So if someone is not having a good experience, chances are I'm not having a good experience with them, and we should part ways anyway. So I do discuss that, because the likelihood is if someone isn't happy, I'm going to let them go. And I often hear the objection, I'm not going to get tied up for another 6 months with an agent that never calls me back, you know, so I hear that a lot. Mm-hmm. And so I will simply say, look, my contract can operate as a day-to-day agreement. And if it's a good decision for you to list with me today, and it's not a good decision for you to be in business with me in 2 weeks, you can bow out with no penalty. And I do that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. One of my favorite objection handling scripts that I've heard you say is your one about your commission. So let's play that out a little bit. Okay. Will you do this listing for 5%?
Gosh, no, I'm so sorry. Do you have any other questions?
That's my favorite. It doesn't need to, you guys, it doesn't need to be any more difficult than that. No.
Yeah. Exactly. Now, if I'm really getting pressed and someone's really putting screws on me, I say this because I will do this. There are some transactions where it is a good business decision for me to look at my selling fee as an obstacle to getting the deal done. And I mean, just maybe that's not a real popular thought, but genuinely speaking, if it's between me not getting a $7,500 commission, I'll look at that. You know, how much more time do I want to spend to make that extra $7,000? I will look at a listing appointment and say, look, I'll be real honest with you. By the time we get this property to closing, the only one that's made a financial commitment to your sale is me. And if it's my commission that's standing between you and getting the deal done, if I can't negotiate effectively enough on your behalf to get you guys the price you're telling me you need, I'm happy to look at it at that time.
Oh, that's good. I like that. Very good. Cool. All right. Let's see. How about just any general advice that you can offer these good people on the call today to grow their business in kind of today's market with how things are a little different right now?
Things are a little different right now. Things are good right now. And I think it's, I think this is the market to build your skills because when the market shifts, and it will because it's a market, you need to be heading into that market with your skills finely crafted and be effective in dealing with a more competitive marketplace. So right now you can talk to 10 for sale by owners, and if they are all just 10 test cases for you to try out a new script, there'll be 10 more in the next 24 hours that show up on your screen. Whereas when the market changes a little bit and there's only 10 for the day or 10 for 2 days or 4 days, your script needs to be really good. So I would kind of think of this time of plenty as build your skills.
That's a great way to look at it.
That's probably my best way to look at it. Yeah.
That's
and
great. Anything else?
Build your database. So there's a lot of discussion around, when I have a for sale by owner or an expired that's not committed to meet with me and I don't have their email, I will ask for it. And I'll simply say, I really appreciate your time. I'd love to follow it up with you at a time that's convenient for you, that's helpful, but not annoying. What would be the best way for me to do that? And I'll say, gosh, is there an email address you're comfortable sharing? And it's just a very soft ask for the email, because now I've got that in my database. And as regulations and everything change, the larger my database is, the more effective I will be able to be on, in the field forward. So
that's true. What to close it out here and there's another question here coming in. But what's something you're working on in your business this year? Are you focused on something new or a skill that you're trying to hone in 2017?
I would say we are working very diligently on getting our financials in order so that our business is run as close to the model as possible. And we refocused on what we call our 33 touch. And that's in essence just simply a past client and sphere contact program where you're in touch with those folks in some medium or another, whether that's email, phone, etc., every 10 to 12 days. And rails a little bit last year when we had some staff changes, and it frankly affected our numbers. So those are probably two things. And then with those in place, if as long as the lead generation, that's the unsaid but understood, is that the lead generation doesn't stop. So
the last question that came through was about what time of day is it best to call. I know you said you had some real luck on Sunday afternoons, but what about mornings versus evenings, and what are your thoughts there?
So Sunday 4 o'clock is like the Uber time. I don't know why, but it just is. It's like, make sure there's no football game on, like get that out of the way. But barring that, I start at 8 and I get the best annually 8 to 9, and then it starts to trickle off after 9. So I kind of want to get the new guys done first. I'd like to be there first. I'd like to get them done first. This is going to sound, no one gets to do this, but I'll go through the list and I'll start down. If there's 10 new names, I'll start at number 7. So nice. There first, because I've got how many other people calling the first? Everyone's doing the same thing. And no lead is mine. They're everyone's leads. So I'll start at the bottom of the list first and then go to the top of the list, just, try to get them first. So, but I'd say 8 to 9, I get the new ones. And then like 4 to 6, you'll get people answering their phones again.
Okay.
So I'm bad at that time because I'm driving or, but that is a really great time to wrap up for sure. Right. Yeah.
You've got kids, dogs, horses. What else are you feeding?
I'm feeding right now, but it's a lot. There's a lot of feet in my house right now. Feet, books. Yeah, it's crazy. So
let's see. We've got one more question. This is about your 33 touch campaign. Do you have a favorite 33 touch campaign? That's a Keller Williams marketing term for those of you who are not KW. It's just an identification for the type of campaign it is. So do you have a favorite one, or what does it feel like?
So I have.
Which one do you use?
we've designed ours so that everyone on my team will feel comfortable calling. And by that, I mean, we have, our next phone call will be about our client movie that's in March. So we will do a client appreciation event in the spring and one in the fall. We go to a movie in the spring. We all go ice skating in the fall. And that gets us a phone event and an invite. That gets us 4 out of 33 per event. And then we send an automated email campaign every 15 days. It's a variety of topics, and we use an outside. So we've got the outbound engine that's outbound engine that does that for us. We've got the outbound engine campaign. We've got the client events, and in building that out this year, we've also added in the summer a school donation drive for stuff that teachers need as a school year starting up. So that'll give us another 4 touches. And we found that our team makes the most successful experience dialing when they're calling about something that we are offering a value. And yeah. And I will add on one thing we learned last week at the conference that we were attending from an agent in Detroit is they do a series of 9 videos. And in the videos, the video emails, the heading is enjoy 20% off at Hal's HVAC service. And then the agent has a quick video embedded in the email, and their click-through rates are great. And then they're able to make a nice phone call after that says, just want to make sure you got the coupon from Hal's, and that he's getting I think he's doing 9 of those a year, and that's 18 of his touches.
Wow, that's a really great idea. And everybody could find a business that'd be willing to do something like that.
Exactly. So that was something that we're going to try to get implemented as well. So ours is a series of emails, calls, and events, basically.
Oh, that is perfect. All right. Well, we appreciate your time. This information was great. I think there were a lot of great nuggets. We always look at a couple nuggets from these things that the participants can take back and actually implement, right away. And I think there were plenty there. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me. This was fun.
Great time. And thank Jamie for his time too.
Yeah. All right. Have a good rest of the day.
In the back. All right, Espresso Agent Nation, thanks for joining us. I hope you have a great week. We'll see you next time. Bye.